Hey nerds, and welcome to CW's Flash Theories and Conspiracies. I'm your host Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. So this week, I'm actually covering both episodes of the two-parter Escape from Earth 2. There was a lot of stuff in the first episode, not so much stuff in the second episode, but it was a really, fun series where we got to see this alternate Earth where Jay Garrick and Harry came from. But it really kind of opened up the theories about who Zoom is and what his connection is with Jay Garrick. So before we get into that, just some of the stuff we saw. The first time they traveled through the breach to get to Earth 2, we saw tons of DC familiar faces. We saw Supergirl, who we know is having that crossover with Flash. They've already started filming it, so that was a nice shout out and kind of allusion to things to come. We also know basically because Barry will be going to that Earth, that all the breaches aren't closed or possibly more will be opening up soon. So we saw Supergirl, we saw Jonah Hex, we saw the original Flash. This is the John Wesley Shipp version of Flash from the original TV show. This is Barry's dad. That's one of the things that's been fun about the show is that his dad actually was Flash from the original TV show. We also saw who we think is Connor Hawke, a future version of the Green Arrow. And we also saw in there a reference to the Legion of Superheroes. This is a kind of a future version of the Justice League. So all of that we saw just briefly, quick glimpses as they were going through the breach. Now, we also saw the Earth 2 versions of tons of characters we already know. We saw that Snart is allegedly the mayor. We didn't actually see him, but it was referenced. We saw Deadshot as a cop who can't shoot, and Deadshot is they're teasing him, and that's how he has that name. Then we had the villains in this episode. We had Killer Frost, we had Deathstorm, and Reverb. Now, Reverb is Cisco when he's actually got control over his powers, and you can see just kind of what I've been talking to in all these theories about how strong Cisco is really going to be once he gets all of his powers under control. So I think once everything from this settles down, we are really going to see Cisco trying to focus his powers and try and figure out how they work. So that was all really cool to see all those characters and see how they are different from Earth 1. Now, other things. Barry's phone in his house only had speed dial buttons, but some of the buttons were very interesting. There was a speed dial for Joe, and then there was one for Barry's parents. But then we had Eddie, who I assume is Eddie Thawne, but then we had Bruce Wayne, Hal Jordan, and Diana Prince. So you've got on his speed dial Batman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern. We don't know how they exist on this version of Earth, on this Earth 2, but it's a nice little shout out to possibly future Justice League there, or just something fun the producers put in. Now, another shout out in that actual same scene, when Barry's talking to his mom, he talks about the trip that he's sending her on, and he's sending her to Atlantis. So you had another Justice League shout out there with Aquaman, because he is the king of Atlantis. So very interesting, just little nods to the bigger DC universe and just how different the Earth 2 universe is. Now, before we get into Zoom and what all that meant, really quickly, the villain of these 2 weeks on Earth 1, Geomancer. He's kind of a nobody. He's a mercenary, no real backstory, nothing interesting, no deep connection with any characters. At one time, he was hired and worked for a group called the Council, but also the Injustice Society. So he was kind of a throwaway character. You couldn't have anyone too difficult or too tough to beat. Although I love that it's Caitlin who takes him down, which really just goes to show he is kind of a nobody. Not that Caitlin couldn't handle someone far deadlier, because she's pretty awesome, if I say. But that's Geomancer. He's strong. Geomancy, he can control and manipulate stone and earth. It's not just causing earthquakes. If you've seen the Teen Titans, the character from there, Terra, is a Geomancer, so she can, manipulate stone and rocks and build things with it and change its shape. And he can do all that in the comics. He doesn't just cause earthquakes. So that's who Geomancer was. Now, Zoom. It's so confusing about who Zoom is and what his connection is to Jay Garrick and who the Man in the Iron Mask is. A lot of people have looked at screen captures and they think the build of the Man in the Iron Mask is similar to either the guy playing Jay Garrick or the guy playing John Wesley Shipp, his dad, or even the guy who's playing, the actor who plays Eobard Thawne. So there's a lot of speculation as to who this could be. Some speculation that Jay Garrick, when he was attacked by Zoom at the same time the breach opened up, is that he was split into two parts, and you had normal Jay Garrick and maybe another Jay Garrick. Maybe it's a good and bad thing, and when they're separated, they don't have access to the Speed Force. That's one theory. Another theory is that it's Eobard Thawne, and that he's being held captive by Zoom because he's being drained of his Speed Force. It's he has to be a speedster. I think this is what it's coming back to. He has to be a speedster because of the jail he's in. The jail he's in is the same one that Barry's in, which it's that material. The only way to get through it is to vibrate at a super high speed, and we see that Harry's daughter is in a normal one with bars and chains. So these cells were designed specifically for speedsters. It's really hard to say at this point. We do know that he does have this other speedster captured. It's possible that Zoom needs a constant source for him to tap into the Speed Force. He can't just take Barry's speed and be done with it. He will constantly need to feed off of him. That's one idea, but it's still really hard to say. So I'm curious, after this two-parter, what do you guys think? Who do you think the Man in the Iron Mask is? And what is his relationship to Zoom? Is Zoom Jay Garrick? Is it a split personality thing? And that's what the person in the Iron Mask was trying to say, that Zoom is Jay? And maybe it's kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, or that Jay actually was split into two. I am curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and on Facebook. Just search for Good Nerd, Bad Nerd. So until next week, this has been CW's Flash Theories and Conspiracies, and I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd.